welcome to episode 44 of the Heavy NFLD official podcast. Yes, episode 44. We are just keeping the train rolling. We are not stopping. We don't stop for fucking anything here on this show. And today, even though it is a beautiful day here in Montreal, it is very sunny. It's the middle of summer, July 27th, as I'm recording this episode. Not a cloud in the sky, a blistering 20-something degrees. I'm not exactly sure what the temperature is. We're going to do something a little bit different. We are not going to play to the genre stereotypes. You know, when I think of summer, I usually think of music that's very fast, very heavy, very aggressive, that makes me want to mosh, makes me want to jump into a circle pit and go super fucking fast. We're not going to do that on this episode because we have not been one to know to follow the norms. That was a sentence. That was English. You understood what I said. Yeah, we're going to do a dungeon synth specific episode. We are going to delve deep into the dankest dungeons known to man as we explore the depths of Newfoundland and Labrador dungeon synth. And we're going to start off with a song from my very own project because, of course, those of you who know me know that I engage in pretty much every fucking genre under the sun that's associated with alternative music. You know, I do fucking black metal, thrash metal, death metal, doom metal, hard rock, dark ambient, and of course dungeon synth is not excluded from that list. So my project is called the Dead One BC. Now you may be wondering where the BC moniker comes from, and that is because I started out that project way back when I was in high school, and when I didn't really know what the fuck I was doing, and also when my sense of humor was definitely a lot more crass than it is now. So I kind of wanted to distance myself from that project, but I still liked the name. I wanted to use the moniker, and I liked a lot of the song titles that I came up with. So I've basically rebooted the project under the name The Dead One BC, obviously standing for Before Christ. And I'm going to be releasing albums with most of the same song titles. Some of them are going to be cut because they're a little bit too not appropriate for today's day and age because I was a shitty edgelord when I was in high school. But yeah, I want to reuse a lot of those same song titles and the same album titles as well. And I also want to redo the album art, and the genre is completely shifted. Like, none of the songs are the same, even though a lot of them have the same song titles. So we're going to play a track from the EP that I released earlier this month entitled From Hell, and we're going to play the very last song off that record, Tortured Atop Mount Disembowelment. Alright, so what you just heard was The Dead One BC with Tortured Atop Mount Disembowelment from the new EP From Hell, released earlier this month. After that was Angelic Murmurs from the Swill by Pouch Dweller, aka James Titford, who is a writer here at Heavy NFLD. That was released on his EP entitled Pouch Songs Volume 1, which came out as part of this year's RPM Challenge back in March. Recently, James actually reviewed one of my other albums called Cult of Azura. That's the name of the band, but it's also the name of the record. It's a self-titled album, so you can check out his review of that record up on the Heavy NFLD blog at the moment. And we're actually going to be playing a song from that record in the second half of this show, because the album does open with kind of a dungeon synth project intro that wasn't actually written or recorded by myself. And then after that was In the Sunken Hall of Eternal Longing by Chamber of Stillness. Now, Chamber of Stillness is a weird project because I have no idea who is behind it, and their Bandcamp has since been deleted. They released a couple of records, and then they just vanished off the face of the earth. I did manage to snag those albums off of Bandcamp before they were deleted, and they are still up on the Heavy NFLD YouTube channel if you want to check them out in full. The name of this record that song is from was In the Castle of Stone, and that one is one of the ones that's up there. But if any of you know who Chamber of Stillness is, or where I can find the rest of their material, then please let me know, because there were a few other releases up on the Bandcamp that I didn't manage to get, and it bothers the fuck out of me that I can't get my hands on it. So if you know who it is, then hit me up, or if you have access to the music that I don't have, then also hit me up too. Now, coming up next, we are going to play a song from Halfling Rune. Halfling Rune is probably one of the more well-known dungeon synth projects from Newfoundland, purely because they're one of the only projects I know of that is purely dungeon synth, that is like 100% focused on that. And they've already released 3 records. I'm not entirely sure the full name of the person behind it. I know they go by Tuck over on Twitter. Their Twitter handle is @PaperbackTuck if you want to follow them. And they seem to have a lot of interest in like old fantasy and folklore and stuff like that. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, then hey, maybe go give their Twitter a follow. But we're going to play a song from their recently released compilation album, or compilation EP. It's mostly a collection of demo tracks and instrumental ideas entitled Dregs and Vestiges, and the song that we're going to play from that EP is called Wizard's Name. Take it away.
My armor is like 10-fold shields, my teeth are like swords, my claws spears, the shock of my tail are thunderbolts, the wings are perfect. And my breath, death. Well.
Alright, what you just heard was Wizard's Name by Halfling Rune, followed up by The Ice Road by Ogreblut. Ogreblut is a dungeon synth project from a person that a lot of you probably know. However, they have politely asked me to not out who they are, so I will not be doing that. But I fucking love their project. They've only released 3 songs under this name so far, but I hope that they release some more because those 3 songs are pretty fucking badass. The name of this 3-song EP is called A Frosted Journey, and the only place you can find it is on the Heavy NFLD YouTube channel. So if you want to hear that, head over there and just search for Ogreblut on the channel. Coming up next, we have our news break, so let's take it away. Alright, so for our biggest stories this month, we start off with Grenadier, everyone's favorite local blackened death metal band, who are traveling to Montreal later this year to perform at Messe des Morts 10. Yeah, the 10th edition of this festival is going to feature Grenadier playing at Piranha Bar on November 24th. It's their first ever time performing outside the province, and I am very stoked to see them. I already have my tickets. After that, we have Anvil, who are coming back to Newfoundland for the second time to play at the Rock House on September 1st, 2022, along with Devastator and Infect Dead, who are going to support them. And just announced today, literally as I am recording this episode of the podcast, Cancer Bats and Comeback Kid are both going to play the Rock House on October 8th, supported by Jim Jones and the Kool-Aid Jammers and Of the Black. Also, I figured this was worth mentioning. If you remember the giant show that happened at Bowring Park last month, there is a video recording of a selection of the festival thanks to White Room Recordings available on YouTube. The name of the video is A Selection for Bowring 22, but if you have trouble finding it, just look for the channel White Room Recordings and you'll see it there on their channel. In regards to new releases that have come out in the last month, we start off with Grenadier releasing their debut record, Trumpets Blare in Blazing Glory, and my god, is it a fucking doozy. If you like sentimental guitar riffs that harken back to the glory days of metal, combined with some seriously brutal, guttural death metal vocals, then this record is for you. Nemephilist, a dark ambient project from Carboneer, also released another full-length record entitled Never Morning War to Evening, But Some Heart Did Break. It's pretty sad, it's pretty bleak, and it's very, very ambient. Nemephilist started out as an atmospheric black metal project, but they made the transition to dark ambient several years ago, and that's pretty much the path they've been on ever since, which is, why we cover them on Heavy NFLD. It's because of that history being associated with black metal. Tunnel Vision, who have been playing shows in Newfoundland for the last 2 years, have finally released their first EP, simply entitled 2022. It's up on Bandcamp right now. If you have trouble finding the link, then just go over to the Heavy NFLD blog at heavynfld.wordpress.com, type in Tunnel Vision, and you'll find a link to the Bandcamp there. Sexhole, which is a one-man noisecore / hardcore punk project that originally came from Montreal and has since relocated to St. John's, has released their second release entitled Down With Music, Viva la Noise. It's a pretty short, noisy, grindy, grimy EP. You can find it on Bandcamp as well. I also released some new music recently. First off, I did a thrash metal EP called Spiraling Out of Control under the name Gamma Knife. You can find that on YouTube as well as Bandcamp. I also released a dungeon synth project, of course, what I mentioned earlier on this episode. The song that we played is from the new EP From Hell by The Dead One BC. That's my dungeon synth moniker. You can find that on Bandcamp and YouTube as well. Also, from Glovertown, the grindcore / porno grind band Fuck to Death finally released another new EP entitled Goth Bitches. I believe there's like 19 tracks on that record, but it only clocks in at like 2 minutes or something like that. So if you want some seriously extreme, heavy, in-your-face, sex-positive sleaze grind, then go check that stuff out. We also have a couple new songs. Jim Jones and the Kool-Aid Jammers released their first new single from their upcoming third full-length record. The name of the song is Supercalifragilistic Drug-Induced Psychosis, an amazing, amazing song title. Go check that shit out right now. It's up on YouTube and streaming. Laxadaisy also released a new song entitled A Ballad of Ships and Wolves. I have no idea if that's part of an upcoming EP or album or if it's just a standalone single. I have a feeling that it's probably just standalone, but if you're into emo and pop punk, that shit's for you, so go check that out. We also have a bunch of upcoming shows aside from the ones that I mentioned earlier of these bigger bands that are touring to St. John's. So literally today, as I'm recording this episode, if you happen to be listening to it on Wednesday, July 27th, Wild Step, everyone's favorite Happy Valley Goose Bay doom metal and stoner rock band, is going to be playing at Grafters Pub tonight, so go check that out if you're in the area. On July 29th, this Friday, at the Abbey and Bar None, as well as Saturday, July 30th, at the Abbey and Bar None, there is a massive 18 band lineup. No, sorry, 12 band. It's 12 bands. My God, I'm bad at math. Yeah, there are 12 bands playing this weekend, so there's basically a mini-fest happening at the Abbey and Bar None. On the Friday, we have This Day, Zach St. John's, and Jaded Truth playing at the Abbey, while Noise Gates, Mantra, and Last Cigar play at Bar None. I believe the cover is $20, and the way it works is that the first band will start at the Abbey, and then the next band will be playing at Bar None, and you can go back and forth in between sets to watch each band. It's an ingenious idea, and I think whoever owns those venues and whoever set up the show, they know what they're doing. But then on Saturday, we have Chimp Apparatus and Sarah Senia and the Skeets playing at the Abbey, while Caspam Cult, Dead Inner Youth, and Disposition play at Bar None. Also on July 30th, there is going to be the Fly Festival taking place at the Waterford Hospital. This is not really a heavy show, but there are a couple heavier bands that are playing, so I figured it's worth mentioning. Mantra are playing on July 30th, along with Laura Taylor and Peter Halley, rapper Albert Dalton. My God, I messed up his name. Sorry, Albert. Albert Dalton, Baraka, and Howie Feltham. And then the second day of Fly Festival is on August 6th, also at the Waterford Hospital, featuring Salem Creeps, along with Cuerpos, Claire Fowlett, Saving Throw, the band Wrigley, and Dougie A. Also on August 6th, at Kinsman Park in Happy Valley Goose Bay, Wild Step and Tiger Jet are going to be playing as part of the Pride in the Park Festival. They're going to be joined by drum dancers Nancy Gear, Amy Norman, and the Flummies. Also not typically a really heavy show, but since Wild Step and Tiger Jet are both playing, I figured I'd mention it. Tiger Jet, for those of you who don't know, features some of the members of Wild Step, but it's more of a hard rock / hair metal sort of deal. On August 13th, the Skeets and Mantra will be making their first ever trek to Corner Brook to play on the West Coast. They're going to be playing at the Corner Pocket along with The Mill, which features former members of Sludge Fist. On August 19th at Plan B Bar and Lounge, we have Jaded Truth and Everrose, though if I remember correctly, I think Everrose might have dropped out of that show and they might have been replaced by somebody else, but I'm not entirely sure on that. And then, of course, we have the two big touring shows that I mentioned earlier at the start of this segment. On September 1st at the Rock House, Anvil will be joined by Devastator and Infected. And on October 8th at the Rock House, Cancer Bats and Comeback Kid will be joined by Jim Jones and the Kool-Aid Jammers and Of the Black. When it comes to the metal world at large, not a lot has happened. I do want to say rest in peace to Bob Heathcote, the ex-bassist of Suicidal Tendencies, who passed away recently at the age of 58. He was known for playing bass on the record How Will I Laugh Tomorrow, which is a pretty good fucking album. It's the third album that Suicidal Tendencies released. So rest in peace, Bob Heathcote. Also, and this is the thing that I'm most excited for, Carpathian Forest and Primordial will both be playing at Messe des Morts 10, Messe des Morts 2022, this November here in Montreal. So this is Carpathian Forest's first ever show in North America, and the show has already sold out, which I'm pretty pissed about, but I'm going to try and find a fucking ticket because I want to go and see that shit. I'm also a huge fan of Primordial, so the fact that I'm going to miss out on them as well is heartbreaking. I am literally dead inside, but that's life. Alright, so we're going to head back to our regularly scheduled program. Coming up next, the last song that we played was Ogreblut with The Ice Road, and we're going to play a song from another Dungeon Synth project, this time from Culls Harbor, named Broken Rune. Broken Rune is a Dungeon Synth project from one Walter Mackey, who has had a number of different projects over the years, from his grindcore project Art Club to a drone project called Mingwa. He's done a lot of different stuff. I haven't heard from him in a very long time, so Walter, if you happen to be listening to this, I hope you're doing well. This is his Dungeon Synth project. He only released one EP with 4 songs on it, which was done as part of RPM project. I forget which year it was released, but it was several years ago, somewhere around 2018, 2019 maybe. And this is a song from that EP called Elixir of Necrosis, an entire EP that is, if I remember correctly, themed around Magic the Gathering. So yeah, this is Elixir of Necrosis by Broken Rune. Alright, so what you just heard was Elixir of Necrosis by Broken Rune from the EP Broken Rune, followed up by A Hero's Entrance to the Rounded Tower by Lithops from the EP The Rounded Tower. Lithops is a project from one Liam Ryan, who you might recognize from just like a metric shit ton of different bands. Like, this guy has been in so many different bands, mostly with like the same group of people. I'm not super familiar with all those people on like a personal basis, but they release a lot of music, and a lot of it kicks ass. It usually spans genres between like just like really hardcore punk to like more pop punk and like emo math rock stuff. There's even a little bit of prog in there, but this is Liam's Dungeon Synth project. He's released other EPs under this name that aren't necessarily Dungeon Synth, but this one is very explicitly Dungeon Synth. You go look at that album art and tell me that that is not the most Dungeon Synth album art you've ever seen in your life. Coming up next, we have another project of mine. As we mentioned earlier in this podcast, this is the opening track off of the self-titled Cult of Azura record, which I released as part of my RPM challenge this year. It was actually composed by a friend of mine, Aaron Powell, who you might know from the much bigger bedroom pop band Fog Lake. He's actually starting another band right now, though I'm not sure what they're going by or what style of music they're necessarily playing, but keep an eye out because he's doing something new right now. And he also actually mixed and mastered this whole record, though he only had like 2 days to do it, which is why the entire album doesn't it's part of the reason it doesn't sound as good as it could. The other part of it is that I recorded it kind of crappily with like one microphone in the span of like a week. But, you do what you can. So, yeah, this is the first track off of that record. It's definitely got a Dungeon Synth vibe. Jordan Walsh, a friend of mine, told me that he thinks that this track could literally have been on the soundtrack to Morrowind, which is like the highest compliment I could ever receive for a piece of my own music. Well, again, technically, not my music. Aaron Powell wrote and recorded this specific track, so shout out to him. Aaron, if you're ever looking for a job, you should definitely hit up Bethesda and become a composer for future Elder Scrolls games. But yeah, this is Dissertation on Tamrielic Lore by Cult of Azura. Okay, so that was Cult of Azura with Dissertation on Tamrielic lore, followed up by Eternhell by Anal Christ from the EP Fuck You God, released back in 2012. Anal Christ is not primarily a dungeon synth band, but much like Cult of Azura, you know, when you get into this black metal shit, a lot of albums and EPs are either introduced or outroduced by dungeon synth sounding songs. So I know this was a bit of a shorter episode. We usually try to get to around 10 songs per episode, but unfortunately I could only find 9 for this episode. So hopefully next time we cover Dungeon Synth, we will be able to get to 10 tracks. But yeah, for this, that about does it. So thank you very much for listening. I appreciate every last one of you out there who supports the Heavy NFLD project, whether it be through the podcast or through our blog or the other projects that we're doing, like on YouTube with archiving music from Newfoundland. You know, it's you guys that make this worthwhile. I probably wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for the immense outpouring of support that we get every time that I post something, you know. So thank you so much for all the support, and we'll see you in the next episode in August. Who knows what we'll be doing then? I have yet to figure it out. Until then, peace out and stay fucking heavy.